Perspective, hosted by Eagle Land. All things Colorado ranches from the owner's perspective.
Welcome to the Owner's Perspective, hosted by Eagle Land Brokerage. And today we have Joseph Burns with us, and we're going to talk about a little ranch property we have south of Montrose. And it's a really dynamic piece of property, so we're excited to do a little podcast about it. And this will be podcast number 3. And so, yeah, let's just start with Sweetwater Ranch, Montrose County. Give me a little bit of a spill on the ranch, Joseph.
Well, this is the Sweetwater Ranch is a ranch that was made. Many times in the ranch world, I tell folks, ranches are not bought, they're made. And this is one of those. So a few years ago, I was commissioned by an individual to try to find the best river property south of Montrose that was available or not available. We wanted to try to find that ranch. And so I was hired to begin a search to find this ranch. And so what we ended up with is now we have 228 acres. But the gist of that was we began with 170. And I sat down with this individual, and he asked me to find it. And I said, well, it's not available. So we mapped the entire river corridor from Montrose all the way to Ridgeway, which is about 30 miles. And then I sat down with them, and I said, well, here's option A, here's option B, here's option C. And, of course, he wanted option A, And so I was told, hey, if you ever get that for sale, I want that. And so it took me about 3 years to buy this ranch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what we ended up with is I bought a ranch for a fella, 178 acres. I was able to negotiate another 60-acre first right of refusal along the river. But then I was able to acquire another property that really kind of rounded the ranch out. And then a second home was purchased that was adjacent that kind of locked everything in. So we ended up here with 228 acres to create the Sweetwater Ranch. But this is a beautiful, beautiful property that sits just 3 miles from Montrose, Colorado. And many times when you find river properties, the river follows a highway or a road. And this property actually sits 1 mile east of the highway, but completely below the normal level of the hay field. So when you get to the ranch, when you get to the edge of the ranch, it drops down about 20 feet. And once you drop down that 20 feet, you own the river valley floor, which is just spectacular. So it's kind of like looking down a gun barrel and the mountains are in the background, but you can get on a moped and drive to Montrose. I mean, it's that close. And so another interesting fact is one of the neighbors to the north of this has a sizable property. Some of it's in a conservation easement, and the river wasn't in the center, so part of it was inaccessible, and the other part was accessible, but it was kind of back and forth, so it was just kind of wrong. It's kind of, where's your boundary? And it's like, well, it's the river, but you're walking down the river, and it's like, well, I can't fish this isn't mine, it's the neighbor's, and vice versa. And then you have some on his side of the river, but you can't really even get to it unless you have a bridge or a helicopter. So we were able to work with a neighbor. It took us about 1.5 years to get this done, but we were able to negotiate and work where the center of the boundary is now the center of the river. So there's a portion of the ranch that has its boundary is the center of the river, and the other portion of the river is exclusively owned by this property. So this is an A++ property in Montrose County, probably the finest river property you'll ever be able to buy in the entire valley.
Gotcha. So you're talking about we're south of Montrose, just out of town. You talk about driving a moped, which I would love to see that, to the ranch. And then it's got that, it sounds like it's like into the road, like mile off the highway. You're down in your own valley, your own little world, even though you're just outside of town. And you sounds like it was, most guys have to work it the other way. Most guys have to come in and see what's available and then buy what's available. Sounds like you had some history at this thing where you worked it backwards.
I was actually solicited by the owner, by the current owner, to find this, and he's kind of a name brand family that said, "Hey, listen, I researched you, and I want to hire you, and I want you to find this for me." And so we basically put it together, and he said, "Go get it." And it took a long time, but actually we were able to get the property listed for sale, put it on the open market, but it had been long enough that when I contacted him, I said, hey, listen, it's for sale. And he's like, buy it. So it was one of those pieces, and but incredibly, incredibly hard to find. And now we have it listed for sale, and it's listed below the value that I placed on the property. Oh, wow. So, yeah. Wow. When I listed the ranch for sale, I had priced the ranch at $8.3 million is what I came in with. And based on that, it was, other ranches that have sold with irrigated ground, but also river frontage. And so when I put a price per acre on the property, that's what we did. My suggestion was listed for $8.95 million because there's nothing like this that's on the river, especially without a conservation easement where you could do some really cool things. And so the owner, the family has just had a change of not heart, but they've got some other things going on in their lives now that are have just caused some different changes. And so the bottom line is they've got so much going on. They're like, Joey, we don't need an irrigated ranch in Montrose, and as much as we love it, we'd like you to sell it. And they had me put it under $8 million. At their request, and said, let's just get the thing sold and get it moved, and so we can go do other things. So very surprising. Typically it's the other way around. It's I think it's worth 8 and they say list it for 12, right. And this is just not that case. Yeah. So really a unique opportunity, and there's a lot of room. There's a lot of meat on that bone still.
Yeah, a lot of equity to come into, and irreplaceable.
Absolutely. Irreplaceable.
The water feature. How many miles? What's that look like? Privacy. Give me some insight to that.
Well, this is a property where you walk down to the river, and river in Colorado needs to be explained because it's different than like Montana, Wyoming, places like that. In those areas, the high water line, anybody from the public can walk the high water line down to the river. In Colorado, you own the water and you own the surface and what's beneath the surface. So if it's navigable, you can float it, but if it's not, then no one can fish your water.
As soon as you step foot in that.
Yeah, as soon as you step out of a boat and touch the ground, you're trespassing. So it's incredibly pristine to own water in Colorado because nobody else can fish your water. This is 1.3 miles, like 6,700 feet of river frontage exclusively to this property, except a small portion where you share with a neighbor who has an estate. And I've never seen anybody fishing that section of water. So the way the property is situated is it comes off the meadows or the mesa, it then drops down to a lower level. So when you're on that, you virtually can't see another human. In the wintertime when the leaves are all off, you can see rooftops of a couple houses. But other than that, it's very, very quiet, very pristine. And the water here at the south end of Montrose is a little bit different because we're in a big irrigated valley. So the water that irrigates the valley comes out of the rivers. Well, if you get to the north end of Montrose, the water comes into the fields, and basically guys fertilize, they do all these different things. The water then goes back into the river and drains back in there, so it actually heats the temperature of the water. Well, this is at a section of the river that's close enough to the headwaters where it comes out for the whole valley that this is very, very good fishing. And just up the road, you'd go to a place called Pa-Co-Chu-Puk, which is right outside of Ridgeway, which is gold medal fishing. So I can't say that this is gold medal fishing, but for a private fishery south of Montrose on the way to Telluride, this is the finest fishing water you can buy.
Wow. Looking at a map of it, it's got a lot of bends and islands and pools and stuff that make for great fish habitat. If it was your ranch, the day you bought it and closed on it, what would be some things you would like to do to it?
Well, that's a big question because there's a lot of things. I look at these ranches and we started the Ranch X, which is a company that basically mitigates ranches. And I've just got such a vision for the ranch. There's the way the water comes into the ranch and the way the water comes off of the neighbors' properties and kind of then drains back out into the river. There's a way to capture that water, build a series of ponds. and really creates quite a fishery inside the ranch. And then also to work with a corps of engineers and put some rock weirs in, do some things along the river to really build a world-class fishery that is exclusive. I mean, so to me, going in and looking at it is like, what is the uniqueness of this? I mean, having fishing water, exclusive water is so rare. I mean, I'll give you a perspective. We just sold a place south of Montrose, and it was a buddy of ours that had a ranch, and he had this beautiful place on the river, but it was 10 acres, 12 acres. The 12 acres with pristine water, just the ground brought $1.5 million. It's unbelievable when it was completely done. And so going through properties like this and create the uniqueness, so through the trees, grading down to the rivers, cleaning up the forest where it looks like a park, and when you go through it, it's just beautiful and completely accessible river where you can take your grandkids down there and fish right into the water, and have walkways where you can go down. And I love surprises. This is a ranch that you could put in little picnic areas and take mom down there and have a glass of wine.
Yeah.
It just would be special.
Yeah. Some of these ranches, it's sometimes they seem to be just for the guys, where it's a hunting place and it's rough and tough, and it's really hard to take a 12-year-old elk hunting. But fishing, anybody can go fishing.
Yeah.
And you can make something that is enjoyed by the entire family in that aspect, and have something that, like you said, feels like a national park, and you're, just a couple minutes from the Montrose Rec Center and restaurants, but you have your own little world. Well,
you really do. And this property is well accommodated. There are two homes. They're both about 2,700 square feet. One is on its own separate deed. So if somebody said, I don't like that house, I want to recover some money, you can sell that house off if you'd like. But there's also a home that's kind of overlooking the valley floor. And there's just some different ideas of what you could do by even taking that home and moving it away from the valley floor, where you could completely isolate the floor, and there's enough ground that we could, there's just little ideas we could sell that off and move it in a different spot. And so in my mind, it just spins 100 miles an hour. So, I love this place. As soon as it came on the market, it went under contract immediately. And the buyer had some small issues that he had to deal with, needed a little bit more time, and they wouldn't allow that. So it came back off. We've had 2 other offers since then, and just guys wanting to carry money, have long closings, things like that. But this is just incredibly, incredibly unique. It's not for everybody, because not everybody can afford, $8 million
right
for a ranch. That really, the give back is solitude, serenity, and something incredibly exclusive. But that's what we sell. And so this is one of those places that is like buying fine art. You don't get to. So it is a one of a kind, special property.
And something that you can make your own.
Oh gosh darn, yeah. Absolutely. And if you hire me from Ranch X, I will just put a shine on this thing I'll be so happy. I'd say I'd do it for free, but maybe.
Yeah.
We can work it out. So.
Yellow iron's a bit expensive.
Oh, yeah. Yellow iron's expensive. So.
Yeah. Well, this is a great ranch, a legacy property. Live water always comes at a premium. And we talk about A-location properties and what that really means, and A-quality. And this is one of those that just is, you can't replace the location.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of work. You can build houses. You can build infrastructure. You can build habitat, but you got to build it on something.
That's right. Something, it's like you can put a dress on ugly, and it's still ugly. This isn't that way.
Yeah.
This is just like beauty to the bone. So, yeah.
Well, phenomenal. So we have a 228 acre live water ranch with some irrigation, agriculture, wildlife, views, improvements, minutes from town, $7,950,000. And like you said, here's a 12-acre place that sold for over $3 million on the same dirt, and yeah, this is a gorgeous place. So look it up on eagleland.com, Sweetwater Ranch. And thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to it next time.
Right on.